All right, this is another video in the video series that we're calling Canvas, I Still Don't Get It. And remember that these videos are meant to be a little bit longer than the normal how-tos because we take things a little bit slower and try to explain things in a more basic way for those of us who are still having trouble wrapping our head around it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So hopefully these videos, while they are a little longer, will walk you through just some explanations and reasoning behind some of this and help us kind of wrap our head around this. So this one is called Pages versus Assignments. What's the difference? I know there's a struggle right now and for a lot of teachers on when do I use a page and when do I use an assignment within Canvas. So hopefully we can kind of clear that up a little bit. We're going to look through some of the major differences and talk about that. And then I have some examples to show you of different ones. So we've built this graphic here, pages on one side and assignments on the other. So we'll take a look at the pages side first. So if we compare this to Google Classroom, which after the year we've had, most of us are fairly familiar with now, think of Pages as the material button in Google Classroom. This is a place where you would add reference material like articles, videos, shared Google Docs or slides. For example, I know science teachers are using Pages to put things that kids will reference back over the course of the class or of the semester. So this would be things like the periodic table and an element chart and things like that that each kid doesn't need their own copy of, like their own digital copy of per se, but something to reference back. A page might also be where you put something like your policies and procedures or your syllabus that you've already created in Google Docs and you don't want to retype it or you don't even want to copy and paste it. You can just embed the Google Doc right there. Not everybody needs their own copy of the Google Doc. It's just there for reference. A page could also be used to put things like videos on, where again, the kids don't have to have their own copy of the video, and you're not going to grade the video, but they're going to watch it. So pages are meant to push out things like that. Pages usually are not graded because there's no, it's not put into the grade book. It's just kind of like a Google Doc linked in there. It's a place for everyone to interact with a shared document. So maybe you've got like a sign up sheet and it's on a Google Doc and everybody should have editing rights to it. You can put that Google Doc on a page. Maybe it's one of those situations where it's a Google slide deck and everyone has a different slide within the same file, within the same slide deck. So you'd put that maybe on a page. This is also a great place to use for resources. For example, I know a lot of elementary teachers, you spend a lot of time bookmarking a lot of things on each individual student's device so that when they need to go to La Lilo or Education City or Khan Academy, they have it in their bookmarks. Well, now you can create a page, and I'll show you an example here in a minute, where it's kind of like links on one page to all those things. Typically what happens is you just take like a screenshot of the logo and you use the logo as the button and you link the button to the site. So I might have the logo for Khan Academy and then they can click on the Khan Academy logo on the resource page and it takes them to Khan Academy. So you can create a page like that where it just links to other things. An assignment, on the other hand, again, if we're relating it back to Google Classroom, think of an assignment as the literal assignment button from Google Classroom. This is where you would create things that you are going to grade because when you create an assignment, that's where you put in how many points, what category you want it, what kind of submission type you want, something you're going to get back from the kids. Now, saying that, I also want you to know that just because you put something in as an assignment does not mean you have to grade it. There is a checkbox if you want to deliver something to students digitally, but you're not wanting it in the gradebook. An example of that would be with an assignment, you can use the Google feature of make a copy for each student. So if there is something that each kid needs their own copy of something, this is when you'd use an assignment. Now, it could be graded or non-graded because sometimes we want kids to have their own copy of something, but we're not going to grade it. And that's totally fine. You can build an assignment and make a copy for an article that you just want them to mark up in Kami. So you could do a Kami style assignment and they each get their own copy, but you're not going to grade it. But if you are going to grade it, then this is also where you're going to want to do that. So it looks like a page. It has the same logistics as a page with that rich content editor where you can put things up towards the top, but then you'd also add in the points, the category, the due date, all those kind of things. The next bullet point there, like I said, everyone gets their own copy depending on what kind of submission type you're using. If you're using like Google Docs and Slides or Kami, there's a lot of different assignment submission types in Canvas, which we'll talk about in another video, but you're not just restricted to those. In fact, you'll have pretty much all the same submission types that you have in Google Classroom, like the Google Docs stuff and the Kami and the Edpuzzle. Plus, Canvas has its own built-in, like you can have them read an article and just answer a quick question, and they just kind of get like a text box that they can do it, or they can record a quick video. When you build an assignment, it creates a column in the gradebook. Remember that you can turn that part off. Like if you don't want it to go to the gradebook, there's a little checkbox that says don't count in grade. And this can be for online or offline work. So you could create the assignment in Canvas and it'll push over to PowerSchool if you're going to do something like offline. So maybe you're going to have them do an essay paper and you create it and they're going to turn in the essay, either handwritten or they're going to print it out and hand it to you, physically hand you the paper. But you can put it in Canvas with the directions and maybe even a rubric in Canvas so that they have that to look at, but then they would hand you something that's offline. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. So I'm going to start with pages. Remember, pages is just a lot of reference kind of material. So I have a group of pages we're going to look through. The most common one to start off with is the home page. When you think of your home page, it's just a place that links to other things. And I think by now, most of you have seen my example of my home page. I just put a cute banner up at the top with my name. I didn't have to do that, but could have just typed it. These are just images I made on Canva. You don't have to do that. You can take an image from anywhere, and then they just link to things. So you can see that when I click on that, it links to another page. So this is the first experience you're probably going to have with a page is just building your home page. You're probably pretty familiar with that by now. Here's another example of a page. This is just like a rotation option. Like it just gives directions. Like I need my kids to do these two things today during rotation time or sometime throughout the class period. This is just a spot where I've said, click here to go to extra math, complete one round. This is a link. So when they click on that, it takes them straight to extra math. Same thing over here. I want them to use Freckle. So this was a page for their assignment during this day. When they click here, it goes straight to Freckle. So I'm not necessarily grading anything on this page, and I don't need them to turn in anything in particular to me, but I need them to go to these two things. So I put those links on a page because I don't need a column in the gradebook for it. Here's another example. This is one that I actually took from an old slide deck that I use with my third graders, and I think this is also one that I've used in a lot of examples. It's an activity that I want the kids to do, but I'm not going to necessarily grade it. And I don't have anything that I need them to have their own copy. All they need to do is watch one of these two YouTube videos that I have embedded in here, and then just respond to my question on Flipgrid. And I've actually embedded the Flipgrid right in here. So they're not getting graded. It's just a feedback thing for me so that I can do kind of like a quick check or formative assessment or whatever to just see how they're doing on whatever the topic of this video was. So I just put it on a page. Let's see. This is a page 2. This is just an example of I just put a video, like nothing else. Just watch this video. Probably had them watch it and then we discussed it, or I maybe had some kind of offline response that they did for me, but it's just I used a page just to get them a video. Okay, here's an example of the resource page that I said. I actually took this one from the Canvas Commons. So some of these things we might not use here at Concord, but it was just an example. It's just a table, and then all these logos link to other things. So like Accelerated Reader, when I click on that, it's going to take me to the Accelerated Reader page. When I click on this BrainPop logo, it's going to take me to BrainPop, Scholastic News. You get the idea. And I can add, as a teacher, I can continue to add to this. It's not in cement, so I can keep going. So this is just a resource page that I have linked to my homepage, just a button that says resources. When they click on there, they come to this and they click on the one they need. And it's just a kind of like a gateway to get where I need them to go, but everything's kind of organized right here. I think I have, maybe one or two more examples. Okay, so this is a choice board. So it's one of those things where kid gets done with something early and they've got some time to work on something else. And this can be used in elementary and in secondary. This is an elementary example, but secondary folks, think about things you could have your kids do when they get done with, whatever assignment or activity. So these again are just logos, and these are just links to outside games. So when I click on this guy, it takes me to this multiplication game. And when I click, over here, oh, he's going to play music. Wonderful. It takes me to, just other sites. Well, we've all got music, don't we? So this is just a choice board. I'm not grading any of this, so I don't need it to go in the grade book. I just want them to have a place for this choice board to do when they're done with other things. I think I have one more, and it's more of a secondary style grade book. Yeah, or choice board. This is from a middle school music, and it's the same thing. It's just not elementary. When they're done with an activity, they can come here, and these are just images, and it takes them to choice board kinds of things. So that's pages, things that I want them to have, I want them to see, maybe interact with, but I'm not going to necessarily take a grade on it. Now let's take a look at assignments. Remember, assignments are things that I want maybe to grade. I don't have to, but I think assignment, if I'm not going to grade it, the reason I would use an assignment is so that they get their own copy. That's one of the big things I know I keep going back and forth on. I don't have to grade it if I don't want to, but why would I put something in as an assignment that I'm not going to grade? If that's your question, the answer to that would be because I want them to have their own copy. And Pages doesn't really do that. That's where the assignment feature would come in. So I know the video is getting longer than I probably wanted it, but I'm going to keep going here. This is an example of an assignment. This is where I give them the directions, and Kami is built right here. Now, this is kind of small. I could have made this bigger, or I could have this open up in its own tab. But for the example, up top here, if they have the directions, then they have all their full tools of Kami down through here that they can go through and work on that. So I have a Kami assignment. This next one, I kind of threw this one in here. It is Flipgrid, just because I wanted to put the example out there that you can take Flipgrid for a grade. Like, you can put it in as an assignment if you wanted to. I think most of us use it as like a feedback or a check-in thing, but if you wanted to, you could use Flipgrid as an assignment, and then it would create a column in the gradebook for you to put the grade in. This is an example of an offline one. So I've put the assignment in, I've given them the directions. They're not great directions, they're just an example. And then they submit it on paper. So they're going to write this out to me. But I put it in Canvas, so they have the directions there always. It's not like they lost the direction page. It's in Canvas. And then I put the rubric down at the bottom for them so they can kind of see what I'm looking for as I grade it. Then when I collect it from them, I can go to Canvas to the gradebook and enter the scores there, or I can go to PowerSchool and enter them there like I always have before. It does not matter. So this is an example of kind of an assignment that's kind of offline, but I put the directions in the rubric online, so they always have that. Let's see, I think this one was a Kami assignment. So it was just simply, I just put follow directions on the Kami document, and then I linked the Kami document. And I've used this one as an example many times before. That's why there's writing all over it. But this is a perfect example of just using Kami. Again, I can make this bigger if I wanted to, or I can make them have their own tab of this Kami, but they have all the tools of Kami built right in. This would be one of those examples too, where maybe this is something I want them to write on, but I'm not necessarily going to grade it, but at least this way they get their own copy of it. Or maybe I am going to grade it. And so then at that point, I'd go to SpeedGrader and grade it. But here's an example of a Kami being built right into Canvas. I believe this might be the last one. This is one that I took from the Commons, just an example. This is a World War II assignment. So in the part that I said looks like the page where I have that rich content editor, or what we've called that like Google Doc built in, I've just typed out the directions. So they read through that. And then on the student side, they would have a text box entry. And let's see if this works. I should be able to take a look using the student view here. I can see what it's going to look like on the student side. So this is what a student would see. They would have the directions, and then they would just have a text box. If I click that, it'll give me just a text box, and the kid can just start typing their answer in here. So I wouldn't have to have them use a Google Doc or anything. I could just have them put their answer, save it, and they can move on. So that's an example of that one. I think that's my last example. Maybe I have one more. I do. There was one more for Google. This is using the Google LTI or the external tool. And there's nothing here because I don't have any kids in, but I created an assignment. And when you do this, you set it up just like you do an assignment in Google Classroom. It shows that I have one file attached. And if I click on that, this logo means Google Slides. So each student will get a copy of the Google Slides. Then as they start working, the little thumbnails will pop up here, just like they do in Google Classroom, where I can click on them and see how the kids are doing. I can, go through and see them. And then when they submit it, I'll get that little submission thing too. And I have this submitted and returned. So this tool works a lot like the assignment tool in Google Classroom. They took it right out of Google Classroom, put it over here into Canvas for us. So we don't have to recreate the stuff that we've already created in Google. We can totally use that over here too. So this is what you would see on the teacher side. The kids would just have their copy of this slide deck. You on the teacher side would have this. And like I said, if I had students in this course, I'd start seeing their submissions pop in here. I think that's the last one that I've got. Yeah, this is back to Pages. So that's kind of the big thing between Pages and assignments. If I have to sum it up in a short sentence, I'd say assignments I want to grade or I want everyone to have their own copy. Pages would be something for reference material, or everyone works on it, or maybe videos or things like that I just want to put in front of them, and either we all do it or they just look at it. Assignments is where they kind of do some of the stuff on their own because it makes a copy for everybody, or I want to get something back from them. Those are the two different pieces on that. I hope this helps. Of course, if you have any questions, Kelly and I are always here to help. Let us know what we can do for you.